In this episode of the CFO Project podcast, we answer your questions around niching. Krista, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to be here because you are a CFO. You're actually a CFO in the CFO Project, and you have successfully niched into a particular industry, which is
mental health
professional services.
Yeah.
Mental health professionals. So before we get into the questions, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a mom, a wife, and a grandmother. I started my business back in 2015 after leaving my full-time job, my stressful full-time job. And I decided to go out on my own, which has been a dream ever since my first daughter was born, which was like 25 years ago. So.
Wow. Okay. Well, yep. And so you said you niched as a CFO advisor to mental health professionals. Why that niche? Just curious.
It's kind of a long story, short story, whatever. But so about 2 years ago, we were looking for a mental health professional for my daughter, and everybody called. They were booked. They had no openings. Took us 6 months or more to finally find one, and then when we did, she was just an intern. So after 3 months after she graduated, she left. So, and I know ever since COVID how important it is for mental health, and so I made it my mission to help mental health providers, private practice owners, to be able to grow their business so that they can hire more clinicians and help more people.
That's awesome. Okay. Yeah. And I've actually had a mental health professional as a client, as a CFO client for a while. Yep. All right. So I think we're ready for our first question.
Jean wants to know, I worked in an accounting firm for several years before branching off on my own as a CFO. Therefore, I don't have relevant industry experience. Do I need to pick a niche or can I service all industries?
Wow, that's a good question. And it's actually kind of interesting that you just said that you didn't really have, Krista, an expertise in mental health profession. You just did it because it was a passion, because of your experience. So I have a couple of thoughts for Jean, but what are your thoughts?
So I was in the same boat. I worked for a CPA firm for about 7 years, plus some private practice owners. And when you work for a CPA firm, you have a broad range of experience for a broad range of industries. So it's not like she doesn't have, but my experience when I went out on my own, I just kind of took who would take me. I think at first you just kind of got to get yourself out there and get the experience, and then you can choose, okay, who do I like working with? So for instance, I took on it was an automatic drop shipper. They drop ship stuff and stuff. And he was
it e-commerce? Was it e-commerce store?
Yeah.
Okay.
But he was such a pain to work with. And, as the years gone by, he just got worse and worse and worse. So I just thought, you know what, I'm done. So I let him go. And then I said, okay, no more.
It's kind of nice to fire a client.
Yeah. And he was not very happy with me, but I just let him go. And I said, okay, I'm not doing e-commerce. I'm not doing inventory. I niched down to service-based business at that point. So then I just went after service-based businesses. And then, so I think it's important when you first start out, just, if somebody comes to you and needs your help and you can help them and they are a good fit, like they match your personality, you can work well with them, then, take them just to get that experience and get your business going. And then once you hit the 250 mark, then you can kind of be more picky. And so.
Yeah. 250,000 in revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with you. That was basically my experience. I used to be an accountant, and then I really didn't like being an accountant. So I started a business about around 2008 that was actually an e-commerce store, because I was able to do that while I had my day job as an accountant, and that business grew. And then I left that left my day job and focused full time on my business. And then I had all these people asking me for help. And I realized that all these other e-commerce business owners were running their business, but they had no clue what the numbers were telling them. So they wanted help, and that morphed into a CFO practice for me. And so I sort of started out with e-commerce, taking on e-commerce business owners, just because that was my experience. But then my second client had nothing to do with e-commerce, and it was also in the service-based business. And that at least for me, I realized that the fact that I understood e-commerce didn't really matter. It was the fact that I understood numbers is what mattered, because these people were flying blind. And as we all know, cash flow, which is a number, is the only thing that really matters. And so business owners liked the fact that I understood numbers. So to answer Gene's question, at least for me, you don't have to pick a niche just to start out. And the fact that you understand numbers, it really matters, because your client is the expert in their niche. I mean, that's what they do best. Why burden yourself with doing what they do best when you need to do what you do best, which is helping your client understand the numbers and guiding them towards having a growing, successful business, as defined as more cash flow. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with you. Just start your business, get the experience, and then find out who you like to niche. If you don't want to niche down, then don't niche down. I mean, like you said, it's all about the numbers, and accounting's accounting.
Everybody listening, if you haven't already, sign up for our 5-minute weekly email with practical tips for accountants and bookkeepers to escape the accountant's trap. Go to thecfoproject.com/newsletter.
Michael wants to know, I'm afraid my niche is too small, and I wonder if that's the reason I'm having trouble getting advisory clients. How do I know if I need to broaden my focus?
That is a really good question. I have several thoughts on this, because this whole marketing and getting clients is very passionate, is a passion of mine. But Krista, what are your thoughts first?
So yeah, that is a good question, because I've actually had that thought myself with going to mental health professionals. I've had a couple of mental health professional clients, and it's hard. I'm having trouble getting on more. So I thought, okay, maybe this is too narrow. Should I broaden it up? But my thoughts is, yes, you could probably broaden it up, but make sure it's kind of stays in the same area, I guess. For example, so I thought about maybe broadening mine up to just the medical field, private practices, dentists, massage therapists, that chiropractors. So they're kind of in the same field, but then it gives you a broader target market.
Yeah, I think, Michael, to directly answer your question, in my opinion, there's not that many niches that are too small. And here's why I say that. And by the way, there's a quote. I don't know who said it first, but the riches are in the niches. In other words, the more niche you can get, the more targeted you can get, the better off you are, because you're targeting, you're speaking to one type of person rather than speaking to everybody. So if you can really resonate with one person, then just sort of resonating with everybody, you're going to be better off, because that one person or that group of people that you really resonate with, they're like, yes, you are for me. But the reason why I say this is because as a CFO advisor, you don't need that many clients in order to make real money. I mean, let's say that you take on, the average member in the CFO Project charges about $2,000 a month. We know this because we polled them about 3 months ago now. $2,000 a month. So if you had 10 clients a month, you're making 20 grand a month times 12. I mean, it's 240,000 a year, right? Is my math right on that? Okay, yeah. So $20,000 a month with just 10 clients. So as long as your niche has at least, let's say 1,000 business owners in the country. Can you get 10 of them to become a client? And 1,000 business owners in a niche is really, really tiny. Most industries, most niches have way more than that. Case in point, a heating and air company, the average state has about 5,000 heating and air companies in the state. I mean, and multiply by all the states out there. That's just in the United States. There's a lot of markets out there, and there are a lot of industries. And there's not that many niches that I can't think of any niche that you can't get at least 10 clients from. So Michael wants to know if he should broaden his focus. I don't think so. But going back to Gene's question, that doesn't mean you need a niche in the first place. You don't have to have a niche. Krista, what are your thoughts on that? Not having to have a niche.
Yeah, I agree. If you don't want to niche down, then, like I said, it's all about the numbers. Yes, there's little differences in the industries, but it's all about the numbers. It's all about the finances. As long as you could read a P&L
Totally.
and, understand the financials and explain them to your client, then I don't think you need a niche.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that, niches do help when it comes to marketing clients, but that doesn't mean that you can't have 5 different niches that you're doing. You just have when you market to those 5 niches, you have a specific message. Mm-hmm. Like in other words, if you're marketing to mental health professionals, it resonates way more to say, I help mental health professionals have a growing and successful mental health practice. That resonates way more than just saying, I help any business owner have a better business.
Yeah.
So absolutely. And the fact that you hit the nail on the head. Every business is the underlying drivers that drive the business are all the same. So every business on earth needs to generate consistent positive cash flow. Well, all the drivers that drive cash flow are all the same for every business. Every business needs leads. Every business needs customers, which all add up to revenue. And every business has costs and expenses. And every business has to acquire or buy or build assets. And every business on earth literally is dictated by numbers, and most business owners, they just don't get it because that's not their experience, their expertise, but it is our expertise. And that's why they love us, not because we really understand their niche, but because we help make numbers clear and we guide them to do the one thing that really matters, which is generating cash flow.
Pamela wants to know, how important is niching in order to seem knowledgeable to prospective clients? I had a prospect who owned a car dealership ask me how much I knew about that industry. I actually knew very little, and when I said that I could tell, that was the moment I lost the prospect.
Ooh, Pamela. Okay, so I think Pamela has a very, very good question, but I think that the answer that I'm going to give is different than the answer she's probably expecting. But Krista, what are your thoughts?
Well, it goes back to Michael's question and what you said about that. It's like they're the expert in their niche. We're the expert in numbers. All niches has numbers, and they're basically the same. You have your revenue, you have your cost of sales, you have your operating expenses. They're all the same. It doesn't matter which niche you're in. So, to answer her the way, I guess what I would have said is, I have experience in finances. You need help with your financials. You're not hiring me to help you sell cars. You're helping.
Right.
You're hiring me to help you with the finances. I know numbers. I'm good at it. I can help you if you'll let me. So
yeah, I agree, Pamela. I don't think your lack of understanding the car dealer industry was the problem. I think it was your response to the owner's question about how much you knew about that industry. When somebody asks, do you know anything about my industry? The correct answer is not no. The correct answer is that no, because I don't need to be. Just like what Krista said, you are the expert at car dealerships. You're an expert at running your business, but you need somebody in your life that understands how to do the one thing you need to have a growing and successful car dealership. And that is consistent, creating consistent positive cash flow. Other businesses in your industry are thriving and they're growing and they're being able to buy more cars and do more advertising and expand operations because they have the cash coming in the door without having to borrow a lot of it, or without having to get investors, or without having you to having to tap into your personal resources. The business is financially healthier, and that is my job for you, is to make your car dealership financially healthier. I guarantee you, if you position it that way, that whole conversation would have turned out completely different. Because what business owner wouldn't want that? Thoughts, Krista?
Yeah, I totally agree. That was like the perfect answer.
Yep. I mean, I just think that, case in point, I had a client, I've told this story before, I had a client that owned a colonoscopy screening practice. Like, what did I know about, first of all, colonoscopy screening? What did I know about the medical field? I never worked a day in anything related to the medical field, but it didn't matter. I basically gave him the same spiel I just said. My job is to help you have a better practice. And he even told me in the very first meeting that I'm an excellent doctor. I'm not a good business owner. Yet this guy owned an $8 million business. Regardless of the fact that it was a medical practice, it was still a business. He still needed customers. He still needed to generate, get more customers, still had expenses. He still had all these assets that he needed to manage. And yet he was walking around every day thinking, I'm a doctor, because that's how he views himself. And therefore, he wasn't doing the things needed to increase cash flow, to have a financially healthier business. And when I explained that is my job, he said, basically, where do I sign? I mean, it was quite easy, only because I painted a mental picture of how I can help him, not how I could do his job better at being a better colonoscopy doctor. They don't want that. They want somebody that can do the thing they don't know how to do.
Yep.
So he hired me. Actually, he literally hired me on the spot, which is sort of uncommon. But he hired me on the spot, and I was his CFO for years and years. And then he ended up selling his practice. And I'll never forget. I know this has nothing to do with this conversation, but with the very first meeting, he hired me on the spot. He says, "Okay, Adam, do you want to get trained?" And I was like, "What do you mean? What do I want to get trained?" He's like, "I'm going to show you how to do a colonoscopy, so you'll know what we're doing here." And I just looked at him like I thought, of course, he was joking. I mean, it can't be ethical for me to do a colonoscopy on somebody. So, but he stood up and I followed him and went to. He ended up being a training doctor. He trained a bunch of other doctors to do colonoscopies, and he had this giant machine in the back that simulated a human body. And anyways, I did a colonoscopy on a machine, but it was, there was an image on the screen of somebody's real colon, so I could see what was going on. It was actually very, very insightful. Did it help me do my job better as a CFO? No, but it was interesting. I never thought that morning when I woke up I would be doing a colonoscopy. So, Krista, as we close, any last minute comments or thoughts on whether or not somebody should niche or not niche? What are your thoughts?
I think it just depends on the person and where they're at in their business. Like I said, don't turn away people that you can help just because they're not in your niche. If it's somebody that you can work well with and that you can help them and increase their business, then do it. And then also, a lot of my business comes from referrals from my current clients. So, I'm not going to turn them away because they're not in my niche.
Totally.
So like I said, like, build up your business. I had like up to 39 clients. Clients come and go, so as you build up your business and you have all those clients and then, one leaves, you can bring on a niche, and then eventually you can, weed them out and get down to your niche if you want. It just depends on you. So.
Totally. Yeah. I would completely agree with you. I think I was one that never really niched after I sort of branched out from the e-commerce business. I didn't niche at all because I wanted to take on anybody and everybody that can help. And then you're right. I would get leads, and you get leads from referrals from existing clients that are in completely different industries. I don't want to turn that down at all. And so I would say the only time that you should only take on clients in a niche, and again, this is just my opinion, the only time you should take on a client in your niche is if your prior experience is so ingrained in a very specific niche that that's all you want to do. If you say that I have 30 years experience, being an accountant for car dealerships, and that's all I want to do because that's all I know, then yeah, sure, niche. I mean, that's only going to help with marketing, as we talked about earlier, speaking to car dealerships, but there's no right or wrong way. It's just, like you said, Krista, it's your preference.
Yep.
Well, Krista, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yeah. And to everybody listening or watching, thank you so much for spending the last few minutes with us. Just want to remind you that we have a 5-minute weekly email that we send out every Wednesday just for accountants, CPAs, and bookkeepers to learn proven tactics to market, sell, and provide CFO and advisory services. If you want that, just go to newsletter.thecfoproject.com. All right. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time on the CFO Project podcast.